Lower dump.
Hello, and welcome to Lore Dump, the show where we take someone who hasn't walked through a game and tell them the full story. I am your host, MONTY'S, and I'm joined by...
Chase the Poet.
Chase the Poet and...
Neil the boy.
Neil the boy. If you're clicking on this hoping for Spider-Man, though I don't know why you would, because it had Lake House on the thumbnail and the title.
A bit weird.
I'm sorry to say
Not sure you're going with
that
that.
we've kicked Neil out of the chair, and you'll have to wait a little bit longer for Spider-Man 2, because I've got some Remedy to dump, and I just want to get this off my chest so I can say goodbye to Remedy for the rest of the year.
Remedy's done.
Forever. Yes,
Sam Lake, we don't need you anymore.
So, we're covering Lake House. We have covered all of the Remedy games except for Max Payne, because currently we're waiting for the remakes before we look at those, because I think the remakes of Max Payne will have much more to tie in with the Remedy universe, if they do any tie-ins. The original Max Paynes have some fun things that later Remedy games start to tie back to, but they're not.
Do you think they're going to retcon them to make it like more part of the Remedy universe?
I really do. There's plenty of Viking imagery and Norse imagery in Max Payne. Yeah, but not in ways where like the old gods of Asgard show up or anything, but in ways that you could absolutely be like, oh, maybe this is part of this thing. Or it's another universe, because obviously Remedy started dealing with multiverse stuff last we saw with the Night Springs DLC, which we also have covered. So, Neil, I'm going to quickly throw it to you because you are our layperson in the chair. Chase, you've played Lake House, right?
I've 100%ed Lake House, yeah.
Lake House as well. So Chase is fully caught up. Neil, you're the only person here who doesn't know what the hell is about to happen. I would like to know what you remember from Alan Wake 2 and any predictions for what this is.
Alan Wake 1, Alan goes in lake. Alan Wake 2, Alan comes out of lake, it's not Alan. But then Alan comes out of lake, it is Alan.
Technically, it was Alan who came out of
Alan's wife goes in lake, maybe.
Yeah, Alice Wake is still stuck in the dark place.
Alice Wake in the lake.
At least that's what we assume.
Yeah, we beat Scratch at the end of. We seemingly beat Scratch at the end of Alan Wake. We do the loop again, but it's not a loop; it's a spiral. And we're heading towards the middle or something. We are. I do know about Lake House that we're perhaps following one of the people who helped us during Alan Wake 2, Estevez, Agent Estevez.
And last we saw, remember, Thomas Zane is in the dark place. He's up to something. Warland Dorr, a.k.a. Martin Hatch from Quantum Break, but we changed his name for legal reasons, is wandering around, walking through realities or something, and is definitely Saga Anderson's father. You'll remember the Agent Alex Casey, who's basically a Max Payne stand-in, and Saga Anderson and Alan Wake all, at the very end of Alan Wake 2, the final draft, they all seem to break the loop, break the spiral, and they're maybe still in the dark place, but we seem to not think that. Maybe they're back in Bright Falls. We don't know. It's all very vague cliffhanger ending. So
The old gods are in there, though.
the old gods are down there. Tim E. Breaker is still down there.
Timmy Breaker.
Timmy Breaker. So there's lots of people trapped in the dark place, and presumably the next plan is go back in there and get them out. Although the old gods don't want to leave. So really, it's Tim Breaker. And
Well, I don't know. I think it's less that they don't want to and more they're fine being there because they feel like they need to be there for a purpose.
Well, I got more of a sense from the old gods that it was more like, up there we're old, we're frail, our minds are going, but down here we can retain some of that and just explore the cosmos.
They are also stuck with somebody they hate.
Yes. True. Well, yeah, but they also said that they made amends. But the beautiful thing about this is we don't need to worry about any of that.
It's so true.
Because the Lake House, Neil, is a flashback. Yes, so we play as Agent Kieran Estevez, my fave, of the FBC's Investigations Department. So she helped us out in Alan Wake 2. We can access this from the menu, but lore-wise, it is actually framed as a story Estevez tells Saga during the Scratch chapter in the base game. So you'll remember this is the moment, the big twist where Alan becomes Scratch, and after that big fight when the dust is settled, Saga can basically go to Estevez and go, what was going on at the Lake House? And Estevez goes, well, let me tell you a story, and then you play the flashback. Okay. So it's a diegetic way of doing it.
I don't know why she'd want to know what was going on in the Lake House. It's been a bit irrelevant.
Yeah.
The only time that Saga went there, they kind of said, "We're closed. Go away."
So it's Estevez filling Saga in on what she was up to before she arrived on the scene and arrested Alan and the Kosklas. We have, because I'm a Remedy sucker, I'm a big Remedy fanboy, and I've got all the merch now, we have Alan's angel lamp in front of us with the light on. It's beautiful. It came as
really good.
part of the deluxe edition. Really gorgeous.
Kind of jealous.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy I got this. We don't need to actually worry about this, but it is turned on. The lamp is on for mood.
It's all good. You have that. I have my... Oh, no, you have a thermos too. God damn it.
Remedy sent me the thermos.
And you have a thermos that isn't broken.
Yeah.
And I have sex.
Cut that. With your wife.
So, before we kick off, I want to draw your attention to a manuscript page I was sitting on when we covered Alan Wake 2. We get this in the final draft, and I think it will set the scene. It's called Breakthrough at the Lake House. This is effectively an in-game tease for this DLC. Dr. Jules Marmont sprinted down the corridor. His lab coat fluttered after him. Red lights flashed on the walls. Sirens screamed. Marmont couldn't stop smiling. It was his experiment that had triggered the alarms. In his world, alarms meant progress. This could be the breakthrough he had been waiting for. He would be the one to get his name in the annals of FBC history. Not his wife Diana, not Darling, that smirking asshole. At the far end of the corridor, the lights suddenly blinked out. The red lights went dark with increasing speed, a wall of darkness rushing toward him. The alarms warbled and died. Marmont stopped in his tracks, admired the purity of the darkness. As it swallowed him, a final spark of pride flashed through his mind. This was his work, his breakthrough. So let's get spooky again.
Spooky, spooky.
Return 3. Addendum. The Lake House. This isn't the Bureau's first time in Bright Falls, Estevez tells Saga. So again, we're playing it as if we've had this flashback. 1970, 76, 78. Last one was in 2010. So we don't really remember exactly what these are, but 2010 is Alan Wake 1. 70, I'm going to get this mixed up. But basically, 78, I want to say, is Thomas Zane and the Dark Presence. 76 is probably the old gods battling Warland Door. You'll remember they were like, stay away from our family. 70, no idea. That might be, well, the old gods did reawaken the Dark Presence as well. We learned that in Alan Wake 1. So that's probably what it is. It's probably, 70, they fight Warland Door. 76, they reawaken the Dark Presence. 78 is Thomas Zane, and then Alan is 2010. It's not exactly clockwork, but this town sees way more altered world events than most. After the AWE in 2010, the FBC's research department set up a facility, the Lake House, to study the threshold in Cauldron Lake, find better ways to contain the entity inside. Your tax dollars at work. When we detected a spike in paranatural activity at Cauldron Lake, before I even knew you were on this case, Saga, the Lake House was my first stop. If I had any clue what was waiting for us in there, I would have just kept driving.
Estevez has been through it.
Estevez has been through it. Remember, when she shows up, her whole vibe is like, it's a shadow, this is how we take it out, I've dealt with this before. So what does that mean? The trees bristle and watch gloomily as Estevez and a small team approach the gate leading up to the lake house. She pushes the buzzer. This is Agent Estevez responding to an AWE alert in the vicinity. I need to speak to the Marmonts. Nothing but static on the buzzer. You'll remember Saga at the beginning of Alan Wake 2, she could push the buzzer, nothing but static.
I thought they responded to Saga if she pressed it.
I don't know why, frankly, I don't know why they would. We both know what's about to happen, and I don't remember that.
Now that you're saying that, you're right, and I have no clue why I think that.
So Estevez tells her team to hang back, secure the perimeter, and she swipes her keycard, pacing up the path to see the Lake House facility, a concrete brutalist block. So full disclosure, we were under the impression that the Lake House was actually Dr. Emil Hartmann's clinic. You'll remember that the FBC seized all of his assets when they arrested him. I no longer think that's the case. I think that this is a new facility that the FBC built from scratch. It looks nothing like Hartmann's clinic, and frustratingly, we get no clarification about whether it is or isn't his old lodge refurbished or a brand new building.
I get zero impression that it is his lodge. Got really frustratingly, actually.
Yeah. I kind of wish it had been the lodge remade.
The Lake House aesthetically is fine. It's fine.
It's cool. It's a cool FBC building, but it's more.
It's an FBC building. Like, I wish that it had. If they were going to do FBC building, I wish it was like FBC building taking over Hartmann's lodge. The fact that it is just a new building, I'm like.
So here's what we do know. Throughout this expansion, we learn, I'm just telling you these bits straight up. Throughout this expansion, we learned that the lake house was built in 2013, and it somehow operates the same way the oldest house did. It looks like it stylistically, but it also has control points set up throughout to stop it from shifting, just like the oldest house. It seems that the lake house is a part of the oldest house. However, there is no evidence currently that you can teleport to New York from there. We don't really understand how this is happening.
Because the oldest house was an energy that was there since the beginning of the world.
Yeah.
It was just the house sprung up around it, the workers and the buildings. So yeah, initially seeing this, I was like, oh, I guess there was always this thing here. But maybe you're right. Maybe it is just an appendix to the.
Like, can the FBC... We don't learn any of this, so the question is, like, can the FBC manually connect places to the oldest house?
I'm just picturing workers
Yeah.
like carrying blocks through the through the hotel, through to get.
So here's two unanswered questions that, frankly, I think should have been answered in this expansion and simply aren't. Number one, is this a new building or is it Hartman's Clinic repurposed by the FBC? My belief is that it isn't Hartman's Clinic. I just wish there was strong clarification.
I think kind of, the simplest answer there is it's just, if they're not going to say anything, it's just not.
Yeah.
And that was just all speculation.
No matter what the answer is, why does it operate the same way the oldest house does? Does the FBC have a way of manually transforming a location into a piece of the oldest house? What we do learn is that originally the team here, led by Jules and Diana Marmont, were trying to find a way to create a stable bridge between Bright Falls and the Dark Place. Even though they don't really know what the Dark Place is, they do understand that there's some other dimension here that you can access. They were originally trying to build a corridor they could control that would let you come and go. By the time Estevez arrives, that is no longer what they're trying to do. Estevez continues her explanation to Saga. The lake house was run by the research department, she says. Research and investigations don't really see eye to eye. What they call science, I call a violation of bureau protocol and human decency. Classic departmental drama. Your FBI, Saga, you know how it goes. In retrospect, my low opinion of the research department may have clouded my judgment. The main lobby of the lake house is abandoned when Estevez arrives. She passes through a metal detector and it beeps. Hello? Estevez calls out. Nobody wants to check the individual carrying a firearm into a restricted government facility? No? Well, this is going in the report. FBC symbology adorns the vast concrete walls. Monitors crackle and buzz with the words experiment in progress. Posters forbid researchers from doodling or bringing pieces of art into the station. One says, any unaccompanied artist must be reported to security immediately. Which is very good. In fact, the banning of art even extends to the vending machines. The bags of crisps and bars of chocolate have been stripped of their colourful wrappers in favour of white wrappings with black plain text saying things like chocolate or pistachios.
Or protein and fibres. Yeah.
An elevator classic sits right in the middle. As Estevez enters, a television screen crackles into life, and we finally get to meet the Marmonts. And I'm going to have to figure out my accents.
Oh, here we go.
Hello, Jules Marmont says, and welcome to another exciting day here at the lake house. He's French. A big friendly smile on his face. I am Dr. Jules Marmont, and this is my wife. Dr. Diana Marmont, Diana grumbles unenthusiastically. She does not want to be there. And together we are heads of this research facility, they awkwardly say together. Diana sighs through the sentence as Jules dances through the line. We run a tight ship here at the lake house, Jules beams, so always remember the 3 S's. Safety, security, and censorship.
What?
The 3 S's, Neil. Safety, security, and censorship.
Oh, it's even funnier if you go back to that poster.
Yeah, of course.
For the 3 S's. Censorship is not spelled with an S. But they still have 3 S's on the poster.
Diana's acutely aware of that. So, safety, security, and censorship. Diana bristles at the line and fixes Jules with a cold stare. Censorship is a C! It's a C! That is the joke, Diana! Oh. Jules forces a smile at the camera. Well, it's a stupid But before Diana can finish, her audio cuts out. We watch as she turns to Jules and starts waving her hands, angrily berating him. But over the footage is a dubbed robotic voiceover. So she's like, well, it's a stupid wonderful joke, Jules. We'll see you down there.
Yuck.
Yes.
Censorship!
Yeah.
Is he in this a lot?
Jules Marmont?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, just note to brace myself.
Oh, yeah. I hope you're enjoying the accents.
These two are, like, this is more so the them expansion than anything else.
Through exploring, reading memos and emails, we learned that the oldest house has been dark for years. 4 years, to be exact. It seems that since the events of Control, the lockdown still hasn't been lifted. The team at the Lake House don't know that Jesse's director or that the Hiss invaded, but they've seized it as an opportunity. No senior leadership team over their shoulder means they can research whatever they like.
Great.
If the PSA wasn't clear, we see an email chain that there is no love lost between Jules and Diana Marmont. What started as a sincerely loving marriage has degraded into competitiveness and an outright hatred of each other, splitting the Lake House into 2 teams. Diana is leading something called Project Arbutus. Jules is leading something called Project Ramnus. These are both named after types of tree typically found in the Pacific Northwest. The name's not actually relevant, it's just a fun thing. Don't read too much into what they're studying from that. A facilities manager called Harry Kingston tries to organise a budget meeting with the 2 heads, and in an email, Diana responds curtly that she's too busy just for Jules to smoothly slide in with his own message, which reads, "I apologise for the difficulty my wife is presenting, Harry. I would be happy to meet and discuss the annual budget. It is, of course, the head of research's job to oversee such work. Maybe Diana is no longer up to the task?"
You're really enjoying this French accent.
It's wonderful. I just think he's been in America too long. Maybe that's what it is.
It's giving whenever they have the French oceanographer in SpongeBob.
2 moments later. So you will see that Jules has snidely copied Diana into that email, and Diana responds simply with the words, "Go fuck yourself, Jules."
I also love the annual budget, annual budget, re.
Poor Harry, was it Harry Kingston his name is? I feel really bad for the facilities manager.
I think you mean Ari.
I'm so sorry for our French listeners.
I am already Team Diana.
Team Diana, yeah, totally. So she's like, "Go fuck yourself, Jules." So into the elevator we go, down to level sub 1, painting production. As the doors screech open, Estevez steps out into a long, looming corridor, and everything goes dark. 3 twisting heads flash up on screen.
Oh.
Scratch gnashes and bares his teeth, fixing the player with a fierce stare. But he's not the problem. Doctors Jules and Diana Marmont have been taken. They shriek and pierce the darkness, and when they vanish, the emergency lights glow red, and now the corridor is different. Paint is smeared on the walls, wild splashes of pinks, reds, oranges, and blacks. Estevez looks behind her, planning to return to retrieve her team, and she sees that the elevator is gone. Classic oldest house. Humongous canvases hang from railings, so big that they funnel Estevez into a nearby office, like someone is dictating her steps. Blackrock bunkers are her only haven, but they lie open. No one is inside. So again, you remember Blackrock was able to go against paranatural entities. It was able to hold back that resonance. It's in that office that Estevez finds a few interesting things. The first is a memo written by Jules Marmont. It seems that sub-level -1 is his domain. The memo reads, "Recent efforts in utilizing the paintings used by Subject P..."
What's wrong with voice?
Oh yeah, shit, it is. He does say shit. Okay.
Start again.
The memo reads, "Recent efforts in utilizing the paintings used by Subject P to adjust reality have been unsuccessful." There's like key stuff in here, so I'm keen not to let it get lost. "Our new hypothesis states that the threshold's energies, and thus its reality-altering effect, are drawn to pieces of art that contain significant levels of emotion. If we can identify and quantify the emotion of an art piece, our work will speed up considerably. For now, our research will continue to focus solely on the art produced by Subject P." So they're working with a Subject P, whoever or whatever that is, and they are trying to scientifically quantify the emotion of an art piece. That's something that this explores. It's really, really interesting. We also get some insight into Jules Marmont's management style through a staff-wide email, which Chase will probably know quite well. "Hello. Both of you said that Dr. Darling, when we did Control, seems like a nice guy who brings treats in on Fridays. No, that's Dr. Jules Marmont. Hello! To celebrate the arrival of fall, I have brought a variety of seasonal pies from the local diner you all seem to love so much. The members of Project Ramnus can enjoy them in the lobby near my office. All other staff should visit the other Dr. Marmont's office to see if she brought pies. Also, despite the ridiculous dramatics of last year, I have bought the delicious pecan pies. Happy fall!
Fucking love pecan pie.
It turns out that a year before, to win his staff's favour, Jules brought in some treats, not realising that a member of his staff, Carla Livingston, was allergic to nuts. She didn't die, but she had a serious allergic reaction, so he did what any manager would do, repeat the mistake. The final thing...
It's not even repeating the mistake. He's willfully being like, I don't care if you are allergic.
Oh, your Marmot's so much better than mine.
They're both terrible.
Oh, sorry, what's your Marmot?
Je suis désolé pour mes amis.
Okay, well, fine.
I'm so sorry.
Show off.
For my friends.
So, the final thing we see in this room is a PSA that our old friend Dr. Casper Darling recorded when he visited the lake house to check up on the Marmont's work.
Smug asshole.
Yeah, Marmont thinks he's a smug asshole.
How long has Darling been dead for by this point? Fucking 20 years?
He's not dead.
Well, effectively.
Well, this is pre-disappearance, Darling, yeah. So he goes, first off, he says, smiling, a huge thank you to everyone here. I wanted to come in person to check on the work, but don't worry, it's not a review, so don't be scared. What is it?
You just said you stopped.
He wanted to come.
You went out. You went, I wanted to come. I wanted to come and...
He just really wants it.
Gonna have to keep that in now, that mistake. So it's like, don't worry, it's not a review, don't be scared. While I'm here, I want to focus on the relationship between the entity we call the Shadow and the AWE site here at Cauldron Lake. The story that the Shadow even originates from the dimension this threshold is tapping into, it's so compelling. And he chuckles to himself like, oh my god, love science. But I mean, that name is not very scientific. I mean, who came up with that? The Shadow. Silly. When I return to the oldest house, I'll take back everything we end up with to run against a classified project called Hedron to build a comparative database. Do you remember what Hedron is?
Hedron is the board, right?
No, Hedron is the...
Oh, Hedron is the fucking little light, the alien assistance bloody... Yeah.
The thing that may or may not be related to Polaris.
Yes, yeah. So Polaris is attached to Jesse. Darling spoke with Hedron somehow, and Hedron warned him that the hiss is coming. And then at the end of Control, Hedron gets corrupted by the hiss.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. I was about to say, I thought I remembered Hedron creating the hiss, but that's what I'm remembering.
No, yeah, it doesn't create the hiss. The hiss is separate from Hedron. It just infects it. So, so he's like, I'm going to build a comparative data set with Hedron. So now he's like, oh my god, we've managed to get hold of an entity, and now you guys have learned that there's another one out there. I wonder if these two can speak to each other. Oh, I wish I could tell you more about Hedron. It's very, very exciting. Non-physical forces impacting our... He catches himself and zips his mouth shut. I can't say more. It's very classified. Through turning on switches and powering up generators, Estevez eventually finds the elevator again, is teleported to the other side of the sublevel. Weird, but she's used to the weird. Her feet splash into paint. She's like, yeah, entities, paranormal entities. She's been out. She's dealt with stuff like this before. Just nothing of this scale.
Do we know how long Estevez has been on the Force?
No, I don't know. You could probably say maybe 8 years. Pulling a number out my bum, but yeah, I think it's maybe like just...
She seems pretty blasé. I mean, I'm sure she will, as she's already indicated, this was bad.
Yeah.
But so far, this seems pretty standard.
She mentioned Eagle River before in Alan Wake 2, and we still don't know exactly what Eagle River is. And I had a couple of comments saying, like, it's obviously the train as a training control. That's a different AWE from Eagle River. It's a completely different AWE. So yeah, she's seen some messed up stuff. This is on par with that, and that clearly has left a bit of an impact. So... her feet splash into paint as she musters forth. A distant hum, a dripping sound echoes from deeper in, and then one of the canvases starts to bleed. The paint drizzles and pours, and a stretched humanoid shape bursts from the paint.
Oh, this is lovely. And nice to see them pulling inspiration from that one mission in The Elder Scrolls Oblivion. For anyone that remembers when we went inside that painting and fought paint monsters.
So we call these the painted, and I agreed. I really love that finally in an Alan Wake game we're getting something that isn't shadow monsters, and we're getting to embrace a little bit like what happens if other bits of art get corrupted. It's really cool.
I don't like the painted.
No.
No. I think they're a bit meh.
I think they're really cool.
I think that they're
really creepy.
They're
So this is-
both incredibly obnoxious, but also not a bit of a nothing at the same time.
Sounds like our podcast.
I feel like we had weird. When I remember talking to you as we were both playing this, I remember having really weirdly different experiences. Like there'll be paintings on the wall, and you like walk past, and there's times where they'll pop out and grab you and basically insta kill you.
Yep.
And there's nothing you can do about that.
A couple of things you can do about it, but it's fine.
No. But then also, I feel like you were getting chased around by them a lot more, and I was basically never getting chased around. The only ones I had an issue with were the ones that popped out.
You can't kill them. So a stretch you can't kill them. Estevez levels her gun at it. If you can understand me, I'm an agent of the Federal Bureau of Control. I can assist you if you take no hostile action against me or any smack. The painted being croaks and gargles as it swipes at her face. That never works, she growls and opens fire. So clearly this is like their, you have the right to remain silent.
So this is the what? The darkness coming through a painting?
What is it?
Coming through emotional expression from a... yeah.
So the bullets pass through the paint and it doesn't respond. She turns on her heel and races toward the elevator, jamming her fingers into the button for sub-level 2. As the doors close, sealing Estevez into a tin can far from the painted, she closes her eyes and she breathes in, calming herself. 6 deep breaths, then get to work, she mutters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The elevator doors open, but something is wrong. This isn't sub-level 2. Please hold, the elevator chirrups. Please hold. A long corridor lies ahead. A strange, rippling painting sits at the end of it. The dark colours are abstract. It's difficult to get any sense of shape. Paint grows out of it, coating the walls like a fungus. It's also talking. Estevez opens her mouth and reverts to her training. If you can understand me, I'm an agent of the Federal Bureau of Control. I can assist you if you take no hostile action against me or any action that can be perceived as hostile. The first time! The painting roars. What kind of entity are you? Murderer! Victim! The anger! You can speak. That probably means you're imprinted on a person or retain some of your former self's information. Previously human, maybe? I just had an unpleasant encounter with some other painted individuals. Any relation? 1,000 paintings, hues, crude, paint, no brush, a self-portrait! As it speaks, it grows louder, rage dotting its words. Fire in his eyes and hands and bones! You need to cease all hostility and... A coloured, saturated face that's stitched, painted, doodled, engulfs the screen, screaming. It's really difficult to catch this, but Chase will kind of be able to back me up. It does the jump scare scratch thing where it like flickers and you see more texture of it. Cool. When it vanishes, the elevator door opens again at the end of the corridor. Estevez goes down. She jams the button for sub-level 2, but the elevator whirs past it, taking her to sub-level 3, the Department of Page Development. Diana Marmont's domain. If Jules Marmont was exploring paint, Diana was exploring writing. The dark presence has seeped in here, taken roam aimlessly in lab coats. Diana Marmont believed that if they could mimic the writing of Alan Wake, they could change reality the same way he did. So in 2022, she commissioned the creation of ATDs, automated typing devices, generative artificial intelligence that was being fed Alan Wake's writing to try and learn and replicate it.
Incredible.
This expansion is Remedy does AI.
It's more Remedy critiques AI.
Critiques AI, yes. Of course, because generative AI is disgusting and shameful gimmick, it's not really been working. We find some snippets of the ATD's output, reading things like, "Dark!" screamed the darkness. A dark reminder of the dark's inner darkness. A well of darkness, a vortex. A dark figure emerged from the darkness, facing the darkness with dark intent. It's good stuff. You get a fair few of these, but that's one of my favorites.
No moon. The moon had been eaten. The moon had been nommed.
Yes. Yeah, it's really good. You get a fair few of these, and the idea is like they have been critiquing it as they go and trying to be like, okay, it needs more metaphors or it needs less metaphors and that sort of thing. They've been trying to teach it, and it just hasn't gotten the message. A humongous lobby, in fact, stretches out in front of us, with ATDs clacking away in a flurry of furious sound. Dozens, hundreds of them drown Estevez in noise. This is a really, because you hear like in the background, and you open the doors, and it's just when you walk through.
Oh, can I add a cool detail? All the ATDs they're as with everything else in the thing. Nothing's digital because it's all 80s tech, so they're all typewriters. And they're all specifically, they went out and found the exact make and model of Alan Wake's typewriter.
Yes.
And got like 80 of that.
Oh, wow.
And then found like his exact paper and his exact ink.
I love the interaction between because that sounds like scientific method, and a lot of what they do is science. But that is like casting a spell almost. It's like we're like gathering the correct. You know what I mean?
Well, exactly.
reagents.
This is exactly what Chase said, and I would argue this expansion kind of critiques your point, which was you were talking about Saga. You were talking about how Saga effectively pulls up like a recipe book and to get Alan out of the lake, and she follows the steps. This is why that doesn't work. Look at what's happening here. This is the recipe book to end all recipe books.
This is like it's also a bit million monkeys with typewriters, isn't it?
Yeah. Further in, we learn that Diana Marmont has found some more pages by Alan Wake, writings describing the work of the lake house. Through his words, we learn more. The first one is about the painter Rudolf Lane. Rudolf Lane stood back from the canvas. He didn't recognize the piece. Did he paint this? His mind was foggy, unfocused. He knew the Marmonts were putting something in his food. A man in a white coat steered Lane back to his cell. He didn't resist. He was too tired. He lay on the bed, but the stench of his cell wouldn't let him sleep. An acid stink, the turpentine, the paint, it was all over him. 1,000 paintings, a putrid weight he could never wash away. Cold hate simmered below the mist, clogging his thoughts. Hatred for the paint, for the Marmonts, for himself.
Is this our subject P? And presumably this is the kind of foundations of that painting we just met.
Potentially. So I did not mention it at the time because there was so much other stuff going on, but Rudolf Lane was in Alan Wake 1. He was at Hartman's clinic. So he was a painter and illustrator who painted pictures of the Taken. It seems the Marmonts tracked him down, brought him to the facility, and imprisoned him, forcing him to paint over and over again. So you really don't get much of Lane in Alan Wake 1. This is quite literally it. You go up and the paintings he's doing are of the Taken, it's of the wolves, and he kind of makes a point that almost like since the period of time of a couple of days, since Alan started writing, his painter's block has evaporated. And it's almost like he's painting stuff from the books. Like Alan's pages are like transmitting into his thoughts, and he's now putting it to the page.
Alan's personal illustrator.
Yeah. There's a beautiful, I mentioned the comics in passing, but again, they're not really important, that you get for after Alan Wake 1, where Mott, you remember the kidnapper, Mott, who's like, I've got Alice, but he doesn't have Alice, he just works for Hartman. After the events of Alan Wake 1, when the Taken are still rambling through the streets, and through the trees, Mott gets taken and he hunts for Emil Hartman. And Hartman, in an effort to save himself, finds Lane painting in the cellar or whatever. And he's like, here, take my cardigan. And Mott then thinks that Lane is Hartman. He literally is like, take my cardigan, go and deal with him, and I'm going to make my escape. And thankfully, Lane, doesn't get killed. But yeah, really, really fun. Poor guy is like been through it.
God, I hope something truly monstrous and terrifying happens to Emil Hartman.
Me too. Also the Marmonts. So
Also the Marmonts.
So, they forced him to paint over and over and over again. Another manuscript page, a page all about Jules and Diana, their relationship. In fact, we pick up that a lot of the pages that arrived in the lake house are about either Rudolf Lane or the Marmonts explicitly, diagnosing and detailing their toxic relationship. Diana and Jules had once been a team, rising stars in the Bureau. Their first years at the lake house had been good, challenging, but not insurmountable. Not for them. Gradually, thoughts fell into their heads like drops of dark water. Why does she get all the credit? Why does he get any credit? With that, a crack formed in the lake house. The Marmonts and their work became arrogant, erratic. The crack widened, and the water seeped in. One page especially seemed to gnaw at Diana Marmont. We see her reading from the manuscript page. There was a crack in the lake house. The Marmonts had let the lake in, but the water could not flow, she reads. It became trapped, stagnant, went bad. The truth was controlled here. The art was not art. just content for the experiment. AI. Really good. Some of the writing, this one's really good. On a tape recording, Diana says that, quote, the page is written in Wake's usual style, so I can't say for certain if it's being literal or figurative when it calls us monsters. But what's interesting is that the page indicates that a painting succeeded in linking Cauldron Lake's threshold with our facility. I can't allow Jules to stumble into success, not after the years of work I put into this research. We learn that Diana's team reached out to Alan Wake's publishing house, Alice, and Barry to ask him about the specifics of his writing style. They're specifically trying to find his typewriter, stuff like that. They were looking at creativity as scientific, trying to quantify it. Naturally, Alice ignored them, and Barry told them to get lost. Eventually, as she tries to find the elevator, Estevez comes across the painting once again. It groans, crackles, and wheezes. It sounds like it's in pain. What happened to you? Did the people here do this to you? Marmots! The painting growls. Clogging his head! Misery! Hate! A man in a white coat! The shape of a man! And then flash. The painting vanishes. Into the elevator, we finally head to sub-level 2. Holding and observation.
Oh no.
This is where they kept Rudolf Lane. But when we find his cell, Lane is no longer there. Blood stains the stone. A manuscript page lies curling in a red, sticky pool. Jules Marmont looked at the painting, it reads. He didn't understand it, saw only random whirls of colour. Drugging Lane had made him more compliant, but his work had turned abstract. These explosions of colour complicated his data. His grip tightened around the letter opener in his hand. The piece of art he needed was hidden inside Lane. If Jules could simply cut the painter open and pull the painting out of him, he would. He'd make the painter cooperate. Less carrot, more stick. He couldn't lose to Diana. Nothing else mattered. A tape recording tells us more, and despite the fact it might kill the vibe, I will be doing his accent. Lane is German. Prepare for a German and a Frenchman arguing.
Buckle up, folks.
Yep. Fuck, what does a German person sound?
Maybe you shouldn't do it. No, you got this.
Give me something. I don't know. I can't paint anymore, Rudolf sobs. I'm empty. Rudolf, no, Jules says, a smile in his voice. You love to paint. This is just a classic artist slump. No, I hate it. It's just taking from me now. When can I leave? You said you'd let me leave. Rudolf, we are here to help you, like Dr. Hartmann did. Perhaps you need to see our doctor? No, Rudolf gasps, terror in his voice. No, it's okay. I'm feeling better. Wonderful to hear, Rudolf, Jules finishes. All of this is in clear violation of the ASH Act, the FBC's rules and regulations pertaining to the treatment of altered items and para-utilitarians. So we learned a little bit about the ASH Act way back in Control, but that's pretty much it. Just don't be mean to them. There's specific rules, but it boils down to just don't be mean, don't be unethical. The way Trench and Darling treated Dylan was bad in Control, but they at least tried to treat him well with stuff like the Threshold Kids and pizza. But Estevez thinks to herself that what the Lake House was doing was against every single rule the FBC has.
Essentially, they're breaking the Spooky Geneva Convention.
Yes.
Spooky Geneva Convention.
Pretty much, yeah. It turns out that Jules Marmont wasn't alone in his eagerness to capture artists and study them. Diana was as well. She was actually looking at bringing in Tammy and Ed Booker. Now, where have we heard those names before? Do you remember?
Booker DeWitt.
No, but fair enough. Alan Wake 2, Tammy and Ed Booker were the two African Americans who saw... And Tammy was writing a true crime novel about Alan's disappearance, and Ed was a playwright who you could argue is probably the reason Herald of Darkness is the way it is, because it flushed down the toilet or whatever. So yeah, they wanted an actual artist to try and replicate Alan's style in case the ATDs don't work. The plan was to bring both of them in for study. But by the time Estevez arrives, the team has just gotten their hands on Ed. He's locked in one of the bunkers, furiously writing out his latest play. Now, how does this work time-wise? Because this takes place arguably, I don't know, a day before Saga and Casey arrive. Or you could argue perhaps this takes place... No, probably not. It probably takes place a day after Saga and Casey arrive. So they interrogate Ed and Tammy in the diner. and then the FBC grab him in the woods? Don't know. So he's in there writing his latest play. Can you keep it down? He snaps through the window. I've got a flow going.
I think the main issue with that is, how long do we assume the events of Alan Wake 2 took? Like 2-3 days?
2-3 days tops, yeah.
So are we assuming that the fall of the lake house was like day one of that?
Arguably. I don't know.
It doesn't line up.
It's a messy timeline, but also I think, unfortunately, the loop in the spiral makes it even more convoluted. Because is Ed only ending up in here in like the final draft version? How does it? I don't know. And I don't have an answer for you.
Does Ed seem all right?
Ed's an idiot. Ed's a fucking moron.
So Ed's like, I've got a flow going. Can you just shut? Because Estevez is running around shooting Taken around his little bunker. And he's like, can you give it down? I've got a flow going. Estevez, no, I cannot. I am Agent Estevez. I'm with the government. I need your name. And Ed's like, I'm Ed Booker. And he sighs exasperatedly. I'm a playwright. Where do you think you are right now? An immersive writing workshop, Ed says, tapping his pencil on the desk. Well, bad news, it's not a writing workshop, but good news, it's not a writing workshop. Ed nods and he goes, yeah, it's a government facility studying the power of creativity or something. That makes way more sense. What are we even doing? What are you writing? And he's like, well, after you all abducted me in the woods, I've been working on this manuscript you gave me because you need it for an experiment or something. I forget the premise, but I've had this block, and since coming here, I felt looser. Look around you, Estevez says, eyeing the corpses, the blood, the dead Taken at her feet. How is this a writing workshop? You have to stay in character. I get that, Ed says. I'm in the theater business too. And look, the sets, the costumes, it's great in that campy sci-fi kind of way. I don't know how Tammy found you guys, but she killed it. This is great, but you could dial down the role playing like 15, 20%. Just some professional advice. Estevez tells him to stay where he is, and she moves on. That's it. As she does, we hear Ed muttering to himself, and he's like, so the shadow monsters represent capitalism, which means the flashlight is the power of the artist. Worth noting that we also find a file here that flags the moment when the lake house noticed that the alarm had been triggered near Cauldron Lake. We know that alarm heralds the moment when Saga found Nightingale and then pulled Alan out at the start of the game. It's dated the 9th of May 2023. However, every calendar in the lake house shows us that today's date, or at least the date when everything went to hell, is September 14th, which means the loop/spiral of Alan Wake 2 has been going on in the real world for at least 5 months. Wow. That's kind of the closest we can start putting timelines on things. Or at least this latest draft, it's all messy, but...
This poor idiot is gonna, if he gets out of here alive, he doesn't realise he's probably gonna have fucking dreams and writing haunted for the rest of his life.
She tries to let him out, and he's like, no, you keep me in here.
Yeah, please let me in here. I've got a good flow going. So Estevez reflects, and she tells Saga in present day, the Marmonts turned innocent people into tools using the FBC's authority. They thought they were untouchable out here, hidden away in the woods. Well, actions have consequences. And then she says one of my favorite lines, and I'm the consequences. Yeah, good stuff.
Pure 80s.
Back in the lake house, her radio crackles. Her team have grown impatient, and they've decided just to enter to check on her, taking the elevator to sub-level 1, which is where all the big canvases are and all the painted are. All Estevez hears on the radio are screams and gunshots. God. Racing to the elevator, it whirls her up to sub-level 1, and when the doors open, Dr. Jules Marmont stands amid a pile of corpses. Half of Estevez's team are dead.
And self-research!
Jill screams before disappearing. You bastard, Estevez curses. Marmont has been taken by the shadow. Well, I guess that simplifies things. No arrest, no paperwork. I can put him down like the monster he is. She cocks her gun and begins her hunt, returning to the office where Darling's PSA aired earlier. I love that she's like finding the upside. Well, at least I gotta kill him now.
I was in a killing kind of mood.
So, she returns to the office and Darling's PSA from earlier, it's looping. The Shadow, Darling chuckles. That name's not very scientific. I mean, who came up with that? The projector clicks. Darling's loop is interrupted with a wide-eyed manic glare of Jules Marmont. He stares into the camera. A light beard is starting to form on his face. His hair is wild and erratic.
He comes to my lab, he snarls. Treats me like some kind of assistant. I run the lake house. This is my facility. Mine! He could just walk in here for a week, make some speeches, and then fly to New York. Pretensio, Clotin. The guy thinks he's a fucking rock star, and he made fun of the name. Ooh, the Shadow. The Shadow is good. It's evocative. He's just a jealous, spoiled little child. I'll make it so that everyone can see this. I will make it so that nobody even remembers his name. They all think I'm a pencil pusher. Well, I will take what they think is possible, and I will break it.
Now, here's a question here about this. We're not going to get more elaboration on this particular line, but I do think it's interesting. I will make it so that nobody even remembers his name. Now, we know that is a possibility. Thomas Zane wrote out his work. No one remembered who he was. We don't know, but something to keep an eye on in the future. If people start forgetting about Darling, if people are like, who the hell is Casper Darling? It will probably be because Marmont did something. But we don't see him do anything, but clearly he was wanting to. So we get a new weapon in the lake house. A grenade launcher that fires black rock. This is important for a couple of reasons. The first is that this kills the painted. They're immune to flashlights and bullets, but black rock evaporates them. It's a constant through line with all of these entities that black rock somehow seems to kill and destroy paranatural beings. Just tossing this out there now because I would love in Control 2 for Remedy to explicitly explain the science behind that. I don't think even the FBC understands, but it'd be great if we learn exactly what it is about black rock that does something to paranatural entities.
It would be great if we just got, I don't know, some...
Control 2.
If we got a weapon that was just the red light on a stick, you know?
What?
Like the red light, isn't that like...
That's the Hiss's resonance.
Yeah.
So why would you want that?
Oh, is that bad?
It's bad.
Oh, sorry, yeah,
Red
it's
light
bad. Yeah.
No, but also, notably, I think the understanding is that the service weapon, Jessie's magic gun that she gets on the board, that probably shoots black rock, is the assumption, because it destroys Hiss, right? So, but I don't know. I'm taking that as an assumption. But yeah, we know black rock can keep out resonances, but the idea of it being weaponized, I think is really cool. And maybe the FBC should start mass-producing black rock bullets. That'd probably be quite useful. And the second is that the person who designed the grenade launcher is kind of key. Carla Livingston. Not key, but she's interesting. We find an email that Jules Marmont sent her that reads... Carla, I have decided to reassign you from Project Ramnus to Inventory Management. Your title will change from Senior Researcher to Acting Inventory Supervisor effective immediately. You may find this change sudden, but I have no doubt that someone with a nut allergy like yourself will prefer to work alone in the inventory booth than out in the open where any dangerous pies may be waiting to hurt you. Perhaps some hard work will keep you from making any more unfounded HR complaints. Regards, Dr. Marmont. So yeah, Dr. Marmont, piece of shit. A real asshole. And Diana, she also did capture Ed Booker, but yeah, real piece of shit.
So
I hope he pecan dies.
Terrible.
Moving on. On to sub-level. Look, at least there's jokes, okay?
I'm trying.
It's such a heavy one. Like, we are getting
We're on late Sunday in the day. I'm sort of swinging for the...
It's artist torture, like the game, this. So yeah, it's hard to find it. So on to sub-level 4 we go. And one more conversation with the painting. I think you are, or were, Rudolf Lane, Estevez states.
Himself, a self-portrait, make them see.
I might be able to help you, but I need...
No brush, just himself.
Flash. The painting vanishes, the elevator reappears, and one last manuscript page lies on the floor. Rudolf Lane was dying, it reads. Both murderer and victim. Red hues ran down his hands. Was it scarlet? Or cadmium? Too vivid to be maroon. Names don't matter, he decided. The colour was pure, inspiring. For the first time in years, he wanted to paint. A self-portrait. To say goodbye. No, to make them remember. To make them see what they did. He slapped his hands against the wall to steady himself. He began from there. No brush, just himself. The strokes were crude, violent. The pain, misery, and hate he had endured there, the fire in his eyes and hands and bones, all spread into the shape of a man. It was quick, natural, like a heart attack. He slumped down to the floor, smiling at the anger he left smeared across the wall.
Wow.
So you pretty much called it, Neil. Absolutely, yeah. Patient P is presumably got something to do with the creation of the painting. We're not really going to get more information. It's, yeah, he created this piece of art and infused it with his hate and his pain, and everything that was left inside him. Sub-level 4. The Archives and the office of Dr. Diana Marmont. A labyrinth stretches out before Estevez, filing cabinets too large, a maze of metal drawers and files. Painted drip out of gooey walls, taken roam and shamble in the dark. But despite it all, Estevez makes it to Diana's room, a humongous glass cubicle in the center of the space. A recording of Diana loops incessantly on a projector. Just like Jules before her, she's frantic, lit by a small spotlight in an endless void of darkness. "He booked the lab!" she shouts. "Some big experiment tomorrow. All those years stealing credit for my ideas and my work, and now he's scared of being plagiarized? Oh, that is really rich, Jules! Oh, and he's reportedly misplaced the manuscript pages I needed for my work. The exact pages I need to reference have just vanished. He is actively impeding critical bureau research. I mean, if he could do that, then what's stopping me from going down to that lab and, oh, I don't know, inverting the amplifiers?" A radio plays in the corner. This is a really cool bit. A radio playing a song called 6 Deep Breaths by the real-life artist Poe. This real-life artist, this is a song she wrote for this expansion. She is featured in other games. Her song Haunted appears in Alan Wake 1 on the radio, and specifically in Alan Wake 2, the Alan Wake song. Some say that I know you don't know this, Neil, but at the end of every Alan Wake bit, you've got this long. Some say that it loops forever. This road that I lose you on every time, and it loops and loops and loops and changes.
The one that you listened for 30 minutes before realizing it was looping.
That I didn't realize it was looping. Yeah. So she wrote that. Her and Sam Lake have become really close creatively, all that sort of stuff. So she is now officially canon in the Remedy universe. So it's a song that she wrote for the expansion, the 6 Deep Breaths song, which is a reference to Estevez's 6 Deep Breaths that she does. It's also a cracking song. It's really good. I know Poe, she's weird, Poe. Her music's really cool and weird. But here's the fun thing. Poe is the sister of Mark Danielewski, the man that wrote the book House of Leaves, one of my favorite books. It's one of my favorite books ever, dealing with a house that can impossibly change shape and leads into a dark void of a basement. It's been cited as inspiration by Remedy before. It turns out that Poe was yet another artist that the Lake House kidnapped and tried to experiment on. But by using the song 6 Deep Breaths, she escaped from the lake house. We catch lyrics such as, "I feel like I'm floating on air, I'm finding roads everywhere, the nightmare can't have my dream." So through that song, through that like, I'm floating, I'm finding roads, I'm finding a way out, and you can't have my dream, she managed to effectively evaporate from the lake house, I guess.
I feel like musicians have the easiest time warping the lake. Musicians seem to have it so easy.
Yeah, I mean, you still need to like rhyme and work rhythmically and all that stuff, but I get it, yeah. I think poets probably have it best.
Maybe.
Yeah. If Poe exists in the Remedy universe, that also means the house on Ash Tree Lane from House of Leaves could exist in the Remedy universe, which is frankly terrifying, but let's not overthink that. What specifically matters here is that the Lake House staff are told to look out for Poe in 3 online areas. The Siren Society, which is a URL that takes us to a mailing list for what I think might be just be news on Poe's new album, not certain. I have signed up for that mailing list, there's currently not much information on that website. Then there's this House of Dreams, Samantha Wells' blog, which is frankly bizarre and maybe means that Samantha Wells is Poe in this universe? Is Poe Samantha Wells, the blog writer who had the dream about Alan? And finally, Redacted Blessed. This isn't a website or a URL. We don't know what this is, but it's notable it's mentioning Blessed again, because we know they're a major paracriminal organization, and likely the cult where Barry currently is, and also my theory is that they're going to be the bad guys of Control 2. Anyway, unable to find the elevator, that's just a fun little thing. Unable to find the elevator again, something catches Estevez's eye. A light switch cord. She knows the rules. She pulls it 3 times, and you know what that means. Estevez arrives in the Ocean View Motel.
It's been a minute.
The Ocean View Motel is a dimensional intrasection, she tells Saga. The doors from the lobby can lead anywhere, but I didn't arrive in the lobby this time, which was definitely unusual. This is weird what's about to happen. This is very different from the motel we've seen before. Also, what's about to happen here is entirely optional. You can miss this.
What, going to the motel altogether?
Yeah, if you miss that light switch cord, like, you can just progress through the game and miss that light switch cord. Wow. All of this is entirely optional. Typically, we have seen that the Ocean View has 6 doors. We know one door with the inverted pyramid leads to the oldest house. We know a second door with a spiral on it leads to the dark place. The door waiting for Estevez is neither of those. It has a symbol on it that looks like a magnifying glass inside of a circle. We've seen this before. We just don't know where it goes. Walking through it, we enter a long corridor with architecture that looks like the oldest house. It's brutalist, it's cemented, it's neat, and it's organised. There's nothing much to see here other than 2 paintings. One shows the outside of the oldest house on a city street, or at least a building that looks like the oldest house. The other is bizarre. Do either of you want to describe what you're looking at with this painting? It's weird.
It looks like a portrait of it looks like I can see Jesse in there maybe, and it's sort of 2 people overlaid on each other with circles or ripples coming out from the center of the face, and it's kind of each circle is a different one of their 2 faces, and it's Jesse, and I can't make out who the other person is.
If I said it was Zachariah Trench.
That rings a bell. Oh, Director Trench, of course.
Both of their director portraits that we see throughout Control.
Wow. Okay,
kind of bleeding into each other.
Yeah. They've got the ripple effect, just like they're bleeding into each other. Now, there are some people, I think it's Trench and Jesse. I think it's almost like, for some reason, this moment is locked where we know that the oldest house changed the picture when Jesse became director. And for some reason, this corridor seems to have like locked that moment mid-transformation. Not sure why. There are some people that believe that isn't Zachariah Trench that Jesse's bleeding with, that it's Dylan. And I will tell you just a quick thing that I've did
because they were a sort of 2-for-1 deal, weren't they? Supernaturally.
It's a weird one, that, and I don't think I really dug into it, and people were like, why didn't you mention this? It's because, frankly, there isn't much to back up the theory, but there's a thought process that somehow Jesse and Dylan are the same person, and perhaps and we only really have that because Dylan in his dream talks about, like, Dylan's whole thing is like, I was meant to be director, why is it you? And also he says it's weird how both of our names are genderless. Dylan, Jesse, isn't that weird? Now that we're looking at multiverse stuff, is the reading meant to be perhaps that Dylan and Jesse are the same person, but they're actually multiversal variants, not brother and sister? Something to consider. I'm tossing it out there. I'm not willing to commit to it right now. There is just one word at the end of the corridor. Sorry, Chase, do you have anything to add there?
No, I was just shaking my head because I don't like the read.
Yeah, I like them being brother and sister. I do think there's something...
I don't like that now that multiverses are a thing, everybody's just throwing multiverse at every single theory.
Totally agree. I don't mind them being the same person that were split, but don't make it 2 different multiversal beings.
I'm really hoping that the multiverse doesn't really leak too much into Control and Alan Wake, and that I hope that they kind of bring back a spiritual successor to Quantum Break, and that can be our multiverse game.
At the end of the corridor is a door with a sign reading Panopticon. Estevez squints. The Panopticon is at headquarters, she wonders. How can it possibly be here? Why has a door that isn't the inverted pyramid led to the Panopticon? Through the door we go, and we see an empty room containing nothing but an FBC containment unit. Dylan Faden is inside. He's no longer bald, his hair has grown out. Strangely, he's wearing his P6 clothes. His voice echoes around the room. It's not coming from his lips, it sounds really far away, like it's playing on speakers or like he's transmitting his thoughts. I'm in a forest, not here. The sun is shining, the birds are calling, I feel dirt beneath my feet, a breeze, everything smells like rain. I'm in the forest, not here, the sun is shining. Who are you? Estevez asks, breaking the silence. The voice fades away. Dylan turns and he rises to his feet, looking softly and sadly at Estevez from inside the unit. It's been a long time since I've seen anyone, he says, these words coming from his lips. Is this the oldest house? Estevez asks. I think that's where I am, Dylan says, looking around. Is anyone else alive? The faraway voice rushes back in. Mistake! Can't escape! Dylan winces confusedly. I can't! Hey, listen to me, Estevez says. This is important. FBC headquarters went dark 4 years ago. What happened? We were attacked, Dylan mutters. The voices rush back in. Was it me? It was them. Wide awake, asleep, suffocating. Did I do it? And this all like in Dylan's voice. No, Dylan cries fearfully. Not again. Not yet. No. Stay with me, Estevez says. What attacked the oldest house? Dylan looks past Estevez, a glaze over his eyes. Something is changing outside. Can you feel it? I can hear it. It's getting worse. He looks at her. Oh, you can't stay, can you? Hold on, Estevez says, but the rest of her sentence breaks up and crackles like she's on a radio and the signal has been lost. Tell Jesse I tried, Dylan says. I really did. Over a choral operatic sound, a sequence of images flash up on screen. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Interconnected with the spiral pattern that we typically associate with Jesse Faden's guiding star Polaris. Sure, well, how do you know the tune? Right. You ready? So this is, Neil, straight up, I'm just not even going to bullshit you. This is our Control 2 teaser.
Okay, sweet, let's do it.
A city street in the daytime. A humongous concrete blockade at the end of the road. A series of concrete pillars in red light. Bodies levitate, reminiscent of the hiss from Control. An underground stairwell leading into a subway station, while looks like blue mold is spreading along the walls. The camera goes deeper underground and we see even more of the mold in a tunnel. Now, quick thing for you on this, Neil. This is a side quest from Control, the mold. It's very it looks really delicious and it makes people really want to eat it. It smells delicious, so they eat it and then it kind of takes them over. It's a mold fungus thing. It's purely a side quest. We don't really learn much more about it, but it's really cool. It's like interdimensional mold, it seems. A figure. Possibly Jesse Faden standing on a rooftop in a long coat. We flicker, and suddenly the rooftop is upside down, a perfect mirror reflection of a city beneath her. A circle appears, the outline of a white circle overlapping with the outline of a black one, a similar look to how Alan Wake overlapped with the Casey echoes in The Dark Place. We're going to save discussion until the end. I think it's the easiest way to do that.
It's fine, because I have nothing to say, because I got 0 of the reads that anybody else did from those images.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Curious what your reads are.
Do you not remember when I went into the Discord after that, and I went, that was a shit teaser?
Oh, I thought it was quite a good teaser. It tells us nothing.
Oh, everybody else thinks it's great. Yeah. And I think that everybody else's reads are great. I just read nothing, apparently. I'm illiterate.
I don't really have much to give you insight-wise. I just think it's interesting. I think it's some interesting imagery. So, anyway, just like that, let's just move on with Lake House and we'll talk about that in a minute. Just like that, whoosh. Estevez arrives back in the lake house. We journey on to our final destination. It's almost like Dylan almost like loses contact with her and she kind of like glitches back into the lake house. I don't know. We journey on to our final destination, sub-level 5. It's a humongous lab, lit eerily with red blaring lights. A painting hangs at the far side of the room, the piece of wall that Rudolf Lane smeared himself on to paint his final picture. 1, Estevez breathes, seeing it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Jules Marmont thrashes out of the dark and slams into her. They're home! They're Marmonts! He strikes Estevez and throws her back. Cut the painter open! Jules froths. Estevez struggles back, tries to grab her gun, and crack. A taken Diana Marmont smashes Jules in the back of the head with a piece of black rock.
What?
Jules chokes on the ground, blood leaking from the hole in his head. Diana stares calmly at Estevez with a small, fixed smile on her lips. Her head snaps to look at Jules. She staggers and jitters over to the flailing corpse of her husband. She climbs on top of him and raises the rock high in the air. Crack, crack, crack. Diana raises the rock and brings it down over and over again, caving in Jules' face until nothing but muscle and bone is left. The darkness in her heart, the hate she harbored for her husband, pouring out of her with each wet thud. Diana innovated, she snarls. Typical fucking Marmonts, Estevez shouts, clambering to her feet and steadying her gun. She unloads a bullet after bullet into Diana in, frankly, the worst boss fight in the entirety of Alan Wake 2, until finally Diana Marmont collapses to the ground, dead. Both Marmonts dead.
Didn't realize this was meant to be a boss fight when it happened, because it was that quick and that easy.
It's so underwhelming. And I actually didn't find it easy either. I found it...
This was a difference that we had, but I think we had that difference on a couple.
I was also playing on, like, Nightmare, like the hardest.
So was I.
Were you? Right, okay. Yeah. I don't know what it was. Something about it just started to glitch and break at points, and Diana keeps running up to
and you
cliff
have to
face,
sit there and wait
for her to come down while she just, like, throws these huge AoE attacks at you.
Because your bullets don't do anything, so you just sit there and you wait, and it's like... But, like, she doesn't have any attacks that the rest of the Taken in there... don't have, like, she's literally just a Taken. It doesn't feel like a boss.
It's a real shame because I really rate this expansion on the
Yeah.
whole. And Chase and I kind of have slightly opposing views on this, where you were a bit bummed that there weren't clear, concrete answers to a couple of our Alan Wake 2 things that should have been kind of tidied up. Yes. I quite like that they say they didn't do... We're going to talk about it one day in a game that you and I know very well, Neil, where some stuff was safe for DLC and it really spoils the base game, or at least bits of the base game. And I'm glad that in the end they didn't hide future answers behind an expansion or a DLC paywall. You know, Night Springs and this, maybe Night Springs has answers, it's a bit weird, but... Estevez races toward a switch that would bring light back into the threshold, burn the darkness away, shut it all down, and the painting, hoisted high in the air, screams at her.
The paint!
I know what the Marmots did to you, Estevez calls out. To Rudolf Lane, I will do whatever I can to make sure this never happens again.
The putrid weight he could never wash away!
The Marmots are dead, Estevez sighs. I don't know if that's any consolation, but it's done. The threshold is collapsing and I need to shut this down. You are a paranatural entity. I'm sorry, but that's all there is to it.
Murderer!
Lane's painting screams. Estevez pulls the switch, destroying the threshold, killing the painting, and we cut to black.
Oh.
A sliver of green light illuminates Estevez as she looks into a black void. Alan Wake stands a few feet away from her, so close and yet too far for her to reach, clacking on his typewriter. Alan Wake, she mutters. Estevez stood in the forest just outside Bright Falls, Alan writes, and we hear it. She watched her team detain Alan Wake and Ilmo Koskela. She realised this was the moment Wake had been writing about in the vision she'd seen. The story coming true. She pushed the thought out of her head. It had been a good tip to find the writer. Nothing more. Estevez blinks and finds herself in the forest near Cauldron Lake. Ed Booker climbs shakily to his feet beside her. Really glad that he got out. Weird, but whatever. We like a happy ending. Our closing moments are narrated as Estevez brings Saga up to speed. After the threshold event collapsed, she said, I was back at Cauldron Lake, but for a moment, Saga, I was somewhere else. Alan Wake was there, writing about me finding him in Bright Falls. It was a good tip. You know, these cases, they never get easier or less ambiguous, but this was tough. Protocol says entities like the Taken are monsters, threats. But the Marmots were monsters way before the Shadow got to them. And at the end of the day, what's the difference? Which is a very cheesy way to end, even though the whole expansion is like, who are the true monsters? But, like, I love it. Yeah, really good. And that's the end of Lake House. That's it. What do you think?
Oh, it was good.
I had some extra stuff.
I thought it was good.
Nothing crazy.
Yeah, I thought it was spooky. I thought it was mysterious. I thought it was a little bit tragic. Yeah, there was lots to like there. I like Estevez too.
Yeah, I like Estevez. I think that, so the Marmots are arguably, officially now, the best human monsters Remedy have ever created.
Probably. Yes.
Like, you've got Emil Hartman, who is so hateable, but like, that is vicious stuff what they're doing down there, and it's like really good. And I think Remedy really excel when they look at human baddies, and I hope they lean into that when we eventually meet the man known as Chester Blessed, whoever he is. Saw a great theory online that if we are going to get Chester Blessed, it's seeing as they're recasting some of their own actors. Might be fun if Aidan Gillen is Chester Blessed. Bring him back from Quantum Break. Just have him play this is just, Quantum Break's a different universe.
Remind me who that is.
He's the baddie in Quantum Break. He's Paul in Quantum Break. I just thought that'd be quite fun. That'd be a fun little twist. But we don't know. We haven't seen anything. One more thing to show you, and then a couple of questions for you, and I want to just quickly chat about Control 2. A quick thing on Remedy stuff. I have had some messages asking if we are going to cover FBC Firebreak on a Lore Dump episode.
I don't know. At minimum, we're gonna play it.
The answer is probably no. It's a 3-person co-op shooter where you play as FBC agents dealing with the hiss in the oldest house during the cleanup operation that presumably follows the end of Control. It seems fun. It seems like a fun little multiplayer game, but unless there is some major story stuff in there, which I don't think there will be, and I really hope there isn't, I will likely just take note of any interesting lore tidbits and bolt them on to our inevitable Control episode. That's not set in stone, but just putting it out there now.
I can see them adding like some just the world buildy fleshy things, but outside of world building fleshy, I think we're getting lore.
Yeah, totally. I hope they're like, it's not like Mr. Door's going to show up and be like, ha ha ha, here's what I'm up to.
I think you're both absolutely insane. Of course they will. It's Remedy. I don't
To be
know.
fair, you're not
in
wrong.
what world are you talking about?
They're the
They're
Kingdom
not-
Hearts.
Yeah.
This is them starting their Kingdom Hearts era.
God, I hope not. But like, this is a fun idea.
We will be playing it. I'm very looking forward. I feel like the fact it's 3 players was meant for us.
The fact it's quote unquote free on PlayStation Plus, you know, like you can get it for free and for free.
You have a PS5 now, right? Mm-hmm. Hell yeah, we can all play it.
I want to go back to Control 2. Before I do, I just want to throw out another theory that I had. I think I just slept on this, and then I woke up one morning and said, I never mentioned this. I currently have a bit of a theory about what the board is. I believe that the board is our main characters in the future. I think the board is Alan, Jesse, maybe Tim Breaker, maybe a few others. I think somehow we are going to end with them uploading their consciousnesses to the sky, and they will become the board to make sure, because we're going to do we're doing weird time stuff, we're doing all that. I think it'd be a solid explanation that this is a tragic kind of ending for them, to make sure that they can effectively communicate with themselves in the past, to make sure everything ends up in a place where they save the world or whatever.
Then
it is.
explain the member of the board that left.
The former. Former could be anything. Former could be Alan. And that's just what he looks like, his manifestation. It could be anything. But I think the idea that Alan has now become some godlike being, some demiurge, I think the idea that they've all fused into this being, this board.
I prefer them being eldritch
Hey,
beings.
that's totally fair. And I also like them being eldritch beings. I just want to throw it out there so that if it ever comes true, I can say I told you so. Just quick thing.
On the tape. Write it down.
So really, yes, the only thing of consequence here is the Control 2 tease.
We don't have
Interesting, the mold getting a comeback. Like, to be fair, the mold, at least in Control, did feel like they like set it up as this is a bigger threat than we're showing you.
Yes.
Like it's only really taking over like one subfloor, like a little basement. And like the little bit that comes out, I think it's in the basement of research.
Yeah, really, Neil, there is no density to that. I mean, I could really go into how the mechanics of the mold work.
Like
but
there's one or two little locations to basically get item at some point that lets you walk over it.
Yeah, and you meet a researcher who presumably actually will probably become quite an important character who's studying it down there. She's a British woman. I forget her name. She's a bit of an arsehole. And like, that's kind of it. We'll meet her in Control 2, and if she's important, I'll introduce you. Question, do you think that's Jesse Faden, or do you think
Yes,
that's...
I think that looks.
Sure, that's not Chester Blessed?
Why? I get
Nothing from this.
I get 0 things from that silhouette. I don't know why we think that is.
I think it's because the silhouette looks like longer hair, like Jesse's shape of hair, but it also could be a hood. So we don't know. This tells me what I think this is, what I think Control 2 is going to be is.
I like you pointing out that looks like the echoes. I never clocked that.
And the thing that we know about the echoes is that its dimensions almost like overlapping with each other. So I think you were saying earlier, I really hope they don't do multiverse stuff. I think Control 2 is multiverse. I think it's 2 dimensions smashing into each other. And I think what we're going, I still hope Blessed is the villain.
I can be okay with like there is another dimension in the story. I just hate the ones where it's like there's a bajillion and we're getting variants. Like if we were doing, because to be fair, Control 1 had dimensions. And that's fine. Like I don't inherently dislike the idea of dimensions. I just dislike the idea of I'm gonna get 10 Jessies.
Yes,
Like I don't want another Jesse. I want another dimension that is just fully new shit that's coming in.
Completely agree. Yeah. I don't need them to be mirror dimensions necessarily. It's such an interesting final image that my belief is that I'm really just pulling stuff out of the air here. My belief is that Blessed is the villain, which means that if we're doing multiverse stuff and Blessed, I think what we're going to have is that Blessed creates some mega AWE, Blessed is the reason these 2 dimensions crash into each other. They activate something. I actually think it'd be really fun, and I know that you've watched Slow Horses. I think that I know Sam Lake is a big Slow Horses fan. I think it'd be really fun if our opening mission is like they fail. The FBC tries to stop Blessed from doing something and they fail. It is a routine operation that goes wrong and Blessed succeeds, and then boom, here's your game. Blessed has done a thing and the world state has changed. Clearly we're going to be out in the city, but again, we now know that the oldest house can travel states, so really this is probably going to be New York. I think also inside the oldest house, like maybe the oldest house gets corrupted and it expands and grows, so it encapsulates parts of New York now. The Hiss clearly are making a bit of a return, which I don't mind.
I don't know how to feel about that.
I don't want them to be our baddies, but if they want them to be an enemy faction, I think that's fair. I think for a Control game, you can.
I struggle to think of how they're going to narratively put the Hiss back in. Because the Hiss have been wiped out now.
Well,
and especially as unless Firebreak is going to be like, we tried to clean up and we failed.
That's how Control ends, right? You're running around the oldest house trying to clear up the remnants of the Hiss.
Yeah, but once you get like Hadron, like the Hiss signal itself is gone. There's just a couple enemies. And I feel like the fact that there are still floating ones in red is signaling that the signal is still there. I'm like, oh, or the resonance rather.
Like, I don't mind if, like, again, if we're doing Control 2, the beautiful thing about Control as a concept and the FBC as a concept is that you could do numerous entities in a game. And that was my biggest problem with Control 1, was that I think that it focused just a bit too much on the hiss, and I wish we had a bit more other weird stuff going on. And if you want to do Control 2 and do numerous different weird things, the mold's over here, the hiss is over there, it's all these entities are spilling out of the oldest house. I think that's a fun concept. I just hope they're not the number one.
I don't know. I like the thought of leaving the oldest house and going to deal with like a big AoE that's happening somewhere else.
I agree with you. I hope that it keeps that Metroidvania, that open world sort of style to it. Yeah. I think that's a good kind of way to do Control, but I don't know much more about this.
I just feel like it's difficult to do that when you are not contained to a house.
Yeah.
But again, the oldest house can look like anything, as Neil always likes to point out. But we don't have anything else about Control 2 right now. This is the extent of it. There's no reveals or treats from interviews.
I can't even fully speculate on when it would come out. I think that if Firebreaks come out next year, we probably have at least 2 years.
Yeah, the communications director said that 2020 for Remedy 2025 is the year of Firebreak. Yeah. Max Payne, the Max Payne remakes will probably come out first.
A teaser trailer this year, mayhaps at either Summer Game Fest or the Game Award, but I doubt if we get anything Control this year, it's not going to be anything more than a teaser.
Yeah. Really exciting. Like, I can't wait to find out what happens next. I like that we're all kept on our toes and that none of us really know where this is going. And this is just so bizarre.
Remind me when the Max Payne remakes are coming out.
We don't know yet, but I think that'll come out before Control 2. There's every chance you're going to be listening to this publicly and being like, oh, obviously we just got a teaser trailer, what are you talking about? It's the end of January 2025 when we recorded this, so we have no further information. But yeah, so that's it. We're caught up on Remedy for probably a good long while, which is good because we have many other series that we're covering.
Unless in a couple months, Firebreak turns out to be the densest game on the entire series.
I'm 100% calling that.
Imagine we get to the end, and the Firebreak people take off their helmets, and it's Alan Saga and Casey.
Oh, something I want to see in Control 2, character-wise. So we have just had an entire expansion about how messed up the FBC is. We know that they are messed up as an organization. We know that Trench didn't run it particularly well. And we know that Jesse's now the new director looking to reform it. Control 2, I want some evidence of that reform, and I want some exploration of what that reform looks like. I also think that what this expansion acts as is probably an origin story for Estevez to become the new head of investigations. Because we know that like these characters are being introduced, the heads of each department are key characters in the FBC, and I think it makes absolute sense for Estevez to show up and go, Jesse, shit went down, I cleaned it up, this is a disaster and it needs fixed, here's my 10-point plan.
I'm really curious whether Estevez going forward is going to be a Control or an Alan Wake character.
Control, I think Control.
See, I don't know, because she's been so set up in Alan Wake now, I feel like it'd be weird to... But then simultaneously, I do fully agree that I think she's going to become head of investigations.
I mean, don't forget that Barry is almost certainly, next time we see him, will almost certainly be a Control thing because he's with the Blessed Organization, which has nothing to do with Alan. We're going to leave it there. We're going to say goodbye. Before we do, we're going to do a little tease. What comes next? What was your favorite part of that cheese?
Cheese?
Tease. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.